it goes right, it's a slice. If it goes left, it's a hook. If it goes straight, it's a miracle. This is Out of Bounds. If it's happening in the world of golf, we're talking about it. Coverage, debate, discussion, pro golf and local golf. Let's do it. This is Out of Bounds. And here are your hosts, Nate Sharman and Josh Durso.
Welcome to another episode of the Out of Bounds podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. I'm Nate Sharman. Next to me, Mr. Josh Durso. Josh, good to have you back in here for the week.
What's happening? We are here.
We got a chance to get off the microphones last week towards the end of the week and play some real physical golf in February in the Northeast.
Some of our golf was realer than other parts of our golf,
Well,
right?
Yes.
Simulator golf.
Not to brag, I did play twice last week.
Played golf twice.
Once,
Lucky.
so did producer Paul, I should say. You know, as at real golf at Silver Creek and Waterloo, and then simulator golf at Caleb Score Zone and Victor.
Yeah.
Both were awesome. We'll talk a little bit more about them towards the end, I think. But it was just great getting on the golf course last week. Swing is definitely not where it needs to be yet for the season, but that's okay.
Those were the first actual swings I've taken since probably November, I
Right.
bet, at this point.
I was able to go down into Florida on a family vacation and played a little bit in December,
Yeah.
but still, about a long time.
You're playing to get out. That's
Right.
it. Like, you're just doing something to get out. I will say,
The exercise was nice. Just being able to walk was nice, too.
listening
Nice
back
to see.
and watching some of the stuff we shot while we were out, crazy windy that day that we were actually out in the real world playing golf at Silver Creek.
Yeah, we made TikToks.
Real-
You made a
real
play hole.
breezy.
I made a play hole with Paul and I, number 10 at Pebble Beach from the simulator.
Yeah.
Head over to our TikTok, Out of Bounds Golf Pod. You'll hear Josh narrating his hole and then me narrating Paul and I's experience at Score Zone and Victor. But a guy that does have his golf swing figured out
Oh, does he ever?
is Mr. Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm wins again. Now that's 3 wins in the calendar year already. He flies up to number 1, takes down Scotty Scheffler's long reign of a week at number 1. The one thing I want to talk about before we get into the golf is the monetary values so far.
Big.
We talked about purses going way up this season for elevated events and other events too. So by diving into the numbers, Rahm's won $9.6 million already this season. And like I said, it's not March yet. We haven't even played a major.
It's like
And
February
he's won
20th.
just shy of $10 million.
Incredible.
So to put that into perspective a little bit, Max Homa, he won that Genesis event back in 2021, came in second to Jon Rahm this week. Homa won about $500,000 more this year for coming in second than he did 2 seasons ago for coming in first. So, I mean, we talk about how money has changed so much in golf over the course of a while. This is only 2 years, and Max Homa has came in a worse position than he did 2 years ago, and he made more money.
Yeah, I mean that's just the nature of the new elevated structure with more money in it, and I think it makes sense. Obviously, we're going to go through this shock and awe phase where the guys who are putting together really hot sets of starts are going to rack up some serious bank, a la Jon Rahm.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if he sustains, using Rahm as an example, if he sustains this through, another couple months and he's racking up even top 5 finishes, that number is going to get gigantic,
Right.
even more gigantic than it already is.
So the only money question I have, and I'll phrase it to you here, is with that, with Jon Rahm making almost $10 million, the purse is going way up. I was reading a little bit about the Genesis Invitational and how weekend tickets were sold out, and they were priced decently high. I don't have the numbers in front of me. The only thing, do you get worried? It worries me a little bit that maybe the common person or just the average American will not be able to afford to go to golf tournaments if we keep going on this trajectory.
I would assume that if sponsors aren't able to come up with the money, then perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to
It's just an
assume
ungodly
I
amount of
don't.
money.
I don't know. Like I don't know if I don't have the numbers in front of me to know like how much more expensive are tickets this year as opposed to last year.
Yeah, just taking a look at like Oak Hill and Rochester. My dad was working on purchasing some season pass for the whole week.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't have, like I said, we don't have the numbers in front of us. But that's 10 years. The 10 years in between, and he said it was exponentially more.
Oh yeah, of course.
Costly.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
over the course of 10 years, a lot has changed with inflation and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting to see year to year, like taking a look at, say, last year's U.S. Open versus this year's U.S. Open and what ticket prices will be. I'm looking forward to kind of looking at that.
I mean, look, I
and
think
diving into that once it happens.
It adding this money has had the desired effect. The desired effect was having more noteworthy Sunday afternoons earlier in the golf season.
We've had some amazing Sunday afternoons.
And there has been. Now, I don't know how many of these events have attracted non-golf fans, especially on weeks when you're competing with, playoff football, the Super Bowl, or you're competing with like the Daytona 500, this past weekend. I don't know, but I think especially as we move forward now, get into the Florida swing, and we start to see, Florida, Texas, with less competition for that weekend television space.
Right, prime time in again, California.
I think there could be some really good gains here made for the tour.
Right, yeah, it's been unbelievable. I mean, Max Homa is turning into a household name, one of the best golfers on the planet right now. His social media presence is unbelievable. The Full Swing documentary has him in it a little bit. Yeah. Jon Rahm is for sure a household name now for anybody. I would think even outside of the golf world knows who he is. So it's pretty amazing what the tour, they've gotten everything they've wanted out of these elevated events so far,
Absolutely.
in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you think? How significant was this win this past weekend for Rahm? Do you think it was any more significant than his other wins thus far this year, or in this run, I guess, that we are watching him move through?
I think yes, because if you ask him, and you see his tweet after and in his post-round interview, this was at Tiger's place. Mm-hmm. So that means so much to these guys to win with Tiger Woods in your presence. Tiger Woods, almost handing the trophy to you pretty much. Being able to be in his graces and a legend, one of the most famous golfers in the world of anyone's lifetime, and being able to get it from him and do it at his place is something that's really, really special to these guys. So I think it is probably his most significant in his eyes win of the season.
Yeah, I would agree, especially since it's an elevated event.
That too.
I would throw the caveat in there, and maybe this is a little bit of me playing devil's advocate, that I think at this point Rahm is the best player by a couple steps.
Yes.
We'll say, right? It didn't feel as like shock and awe as his first couple wins that we've seen in the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, I look.
So I guess it's kind of like the question I have now is how long can he sustain this?
Right.
Because I don't think anybody expects him to go through the entire season this way. He's playing like out of his mind.
I wouldn't be surprised though. I mean, what's going to stop him, right? I mean, I remember looking at that leaderboard on Saturday. I didn't have a ton of time to watch on Friday, and being like, "Oh, Jon Rahm's winning."
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well,
shocker,
I mean,
right?
Scotty Scheffler did the same thing in the beginning of last year.
Yeah, but this is even shorter amount of time. You think about Scotty, he won at Bay Hill, and then he won at the Masters.
Yeah.
So this is even more of a condensed moment than Scotty. Were the events different? Sure, last year.
Yeah.
Money was different.
Very
Everything
much.
was. There was a very much different, so different circumstances last year than there is this year. But still, it's unreal.
Yeah, I think at some point, I think there's going to be a question or a debate, and I think probably next week we'll end up talking, because there's going to be a players meeting at Bay Hill. Mm-hmm. We'll end up talking about what long term is it going to mean for these guys who are winning the elevated events with a smaller field without the surprise contenders that came up over the last 4 or 5 years as golf grew into this really deep week in, week out field that we see now. What do the wins look like without those guys in the field? Like, how are those measured long term? Like, yes, you're playing against, in theory, the 60 to 100 best golfers in the world, mostly, but is it somehow eroded a little bit because you don't have, the 100 to 150 or 160th guys that are also, were also performing well enough to be in these events on a regular basis before. So it's a wait and see thing. There's a lot to dissect with that one, but that's something that I think is going to have to be watched. Shifting gears here a little bit, but staying with last week's tournament, pace of play it seems like it's starting to become more of an issue that people are paying attention to.
Right.
Seeing scattered complaints on golf Twitter is one thing,
Right.
but it seems, especially after the last couple of weeks, with the tour having trouble getting through days 1 and 2 with pristine weather.
Right. Yeah, they didn't. I can't remember if it was. I think it was Thursday. They didn't finish. They
Yeah.
just canceled due to darkness. So they were really close to being done. There's
Right.
a couple guys, only a few holes left, but yeah, that's something that
You shouldn't even
I
be
don't-
scaring it, though, right? Like,
Right.
if you've got 150 guys in the field, and you shouldn't have. You think about it. You say like, well, pretty close to being done. But I think I had seen there were a couple guys that had like 3-4 holes left.
Right.
And that's a significant amount of golf to play when
Yeah.
it's getting dark. I mean, that's basically
45
an
minutes, an
hour.
hour.
Yeah, 45 minutes or an hour's worth of golf.
Right.
Does the tour need to do something?
Yeah. The one thing I don't understand is more so on the weekend.
Right.
On Sunday, they were playing split tees in threesomes after the cut, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. 3 guys playing on a Sunday, especially that last group, Rahm, Mitchell, and Homa. They're playing for $20 million, so they're not going to play fast adjacent. They're going to take their time. They're going to make sure they are ready to hit. So they're not going to play. I'm not saying they're playing slow, but they're playing serious golf. And I just don't really get it. It takes forever. It takes probably between 5.5 to 6, sometimes 6 hours for a group to play. Three people, playing for that kind of money on a Sunday. And they weren't hitting it great off the tee too. Homa and Rahm were hitting it left, which I thought was strange because they're cutters of the golf ball.
Yeah.
A couple times they were way left. And I just think it kind of takes it a little bit out of it when these guys are taking forever to get through the day on Sunday. I felt like I was watching that final round all day.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think it's less of a problem right after the cut.
Right, but it's still, why are we playing threesomes on Sunday though? I thought that was strange. There's got to be a reason, of course, but
I think they were probably at that point trying to avoid what happened Friday,
yeah,
which
but you
was
have
just
half the field or less than half
right.
the field.
I see it looked a bit like an overreaction, I guess,
Yeah.
right? Like it was just like, we need to make sure there's absolutely no chance that we're even cutting this
Right.
remotely close.
And I understand why they did it, like at the Waste Management of the Super Bowl. You want to make sure you get done before that starts, of
Yeah.
course. And that makes sense, but I don't know, it's just kind of strange to me, just seeing 3 guys on a Sunday, kind of always, when there's no weather, they do it sometimes if there's weather. They want to get done, they want to get the groups out on the golf course faster, which makes sense, but there's no problems yesterday. And you run into the Daytona 500, but that's still not a big deal, not as like the Super Bowl. It's not as watched as that. So I thought that was intriguing to see them playing threesomes.
It boggles my mind that the answer that's right in front of us is not the one that the tour just hops on, which is time the guys. Like, you've got rules officials all over the place.
Yeah.
Put a spotter on every group. I'm sure there's a spotter of some kind. I'm sure the tour has some kind of spotter on every group that's out there in most normal week in, week out events anyway.
Right.
Put a spotter with a timer on them and make sure the guys are actually holding to the time that they're supposed to play in.
Yeah, I think guys have a difficult time enforcing that. It can be really challenging when you penalize this guy versus this guy and you figure out who in the group is really slowing us down.
Well, it's like a play clock thing.
Right.
Like, you essentially need to put a play clock on
Yeah.
on golf. I hate to say it, but like, you want to talk about growing the game. Like, that is one thing that grows the game, and not the way any of us
not the
want
right
the
way.
game grown.
Right.
Nobody wants to go out to their local club and on a Saturday or any day of the week for that matter and be out there for 5.5 hours.
Can't agree more. Let's talk about Tiger Woods. He made his return.
Tiger
Played pretty well, too, I thought. 69-74, 67-73. That Saturday 67 was unbelievable. He hit a shot, I believe it was on number 12. It's a par 5 on the back 9. And he almost made a 2.
Yeah.
Almost made an albatross.
Yeah. Yep.
It went just over the hole pretty much, and then knocked in that short 5-footer-ish for Eagle.
Eagle.
Shot 67.
Heck of
So,
it. That was the
Tiger
day he
still
looked
has it.
best. That was the day he looked best.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sunday he definitely looked a little tired,
Oh,
which is to be expected and is very okay. But it's just so great to have him back out there. He's amazing, and it really makes a big difference out there on my mind. Not necessarily not always on the television broadcast, but just the guy's mantras too, for sure.
I thought it was interesting. There was it seemed like a little more attention paid to, his back looked a little stiff. He was walking with a little more of a hitch on Sunday. all that. Some speculation afterward on Twitter about, whether he could really contend on the fourth day. And, I just think, like, we would have seen a completely different Tiger, physically speaking, if he were 2 strokes out of the lead going into Sunday.
Probably, yeah.
Than the one that we saw. I thought that it was pretty telling, like, when he was interviewed after Saturday's round, he said, I wish I had, made a charge a little sooner, so I'd, at least be within, like, an arm's reach of these guys. And that, to me, sort of signaled, like, he knew he was out of contention, and he probably didn't push his body as much as he would have had he been. So I don't think the way he looked necessarily on Sunday, that was the day he looked the worst, I don't necessarily think that's a reflection of whether he can contend at a future date.
Right.
Obviously, if he's going to catch guys like Max Homa and Jon Rahm, he's going to have to play a hell of a lot better than he did this past weekend.
For sure.
Clearly.
Let's talk about the tampon incident. This was
Yes.
something that I think rocked the golf world on Thursday when, Tiger, Rory, JT played together the first 2 rounds. And Tiger hit it by JT. He did it on multiple occasions, actually.
Yeah.
And one of the holes, I don't know which one exactly, he appeared to discreetly hand JT a tampon to just play a little jab, a little joke at his friend. Do you think that's a big deal as we're making it on golf Twitter, as some people are? What's your thoughts on it?
I think if you are frustrated by it, I understand the frustration. You're
Yes, me
playing
too.
into the tropes, the misogynist tropes, but at the same time, I always come back to, and I've said this since the late 2000s, basically, when Tiger's life fell apart. I've admired Tiger my entire life for what he was on the golf course, not the person he was off the course. And whether you want to say it was just a joke or whatever the case may be, all these guys have personalities. All these guys have things that would be either cringy or stuff they do that just isn't up to everybody's standards. And Tiger, of all people, if you can't look at him and his life, his adult life, and say, maybe we shouldn't really look at him on, like, the personal character side and think that this is a role model. If you want to say, like, on a golf course, he works hard, he's, the best golfer of all time. Yes, check all those boxes. But role model, no. I just kind of, like, when I saw it and I knew what the reaction was going to be, you listen to the complaints on Golf Channel and online, and I understand why it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's Tiger Woods.
Right.
What do you expect? Did you think the guy who cheated on his wife with 42 different women is suddenly a different person? Like, he's at his core a different person than he was 12, 14 years ago? No. Like, he's still the same person at his core. People don't change. Not like that anyway.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The biggest thing for me out of this, though, is that, so we've talked about not only in golf, but in all sports, we want our athletes to have a personality, right?
Yep.
We want them to say maybe not necessarily what they feel at all times, but, just kind of say what they stand for and have that platform, right? And so Tiger does this obvious joke, right? And then we ridicule guys for it. So it's like we can't ask athletes to have personalities and then tell them their personalities are wrong or anything like that. So I think
Be funny until we don't like your joke.
Right.
And then when we don't like your joke, stop being funny.
Right. So it's almost a little bit of a double-edged sword for me. I think everyone in the world thought it was funny. There's even some women personalities in golf that thought it was funny.
The majority.
Yeah.
The majority of it seemed to be that the majority of, I'll just call it golf Twitter.
Right.
Was not offended by it.
Even
not
like Paige
moved,
Spiranac, who leads the women golf movement on Twitter, in my mind.
Yep.
She had a really funny joke, almost, or maybe more serious than a joke, that Tampax should sponsor it and just kind of roll with it. And I thought that's a great idea. You might as well use that positive momentum too.
Well, and that's another. She's a really good example, and I think she was the one that tweeted it, something along the lines of, "Feminists can't pick and choose when they're going to be outraged." She gets a lot of hate. Right. Because of the brand that she has created around her in the golf space. So it's kind of this like, okay, when are we going to be offended? When are we not going to be offended?
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting because like then the next day Tiger is, you know, he's walking, I think it was what, 15th, 16th green, one of the two. And there's the little girl who's, I believe, defeated cancer.
That was so cool.
And, you know, she wants to beat Tiger Woods. He goes up, he checks it off. He signs a glove, gives it to her, gives her a high five. It's like, you know, I understand like there's the thing that everybody wants to like cling on to, which is the controversy or whatever. But, you know, we cruised right by that.
Right.
We just like completely got like, you know, 2 headlines and the rest was like, oh yeah, but this tampon, that was a real big deal.
Right.
It's just whatever.
That's always how that's going to work.
Impressed by his swing speed?
Oh, very.
Yeah.
I mean, he still takes a rip at it, and he's got a body that's put together barely.
So, I don't know. My thing with that is looking at him now, like especially I've looked at some pictures just from kind of like every few years. His upper body is so much stronger now than it was in previous iterations of Tiger. He's obviously not generating as much from his legs, right?
Yeah.
Like clearly. But he's compensated for that in his upper body. And you know, it's not the same Tiger Woods, but it's not really it didn't really take me by surprise that like some of the numbers we were seeing on swing speed over the weekend just wasn't. And it didn't really surprise me that he got by JT and Rory a couple times, you know, over the first couple days. Like, yeah, that can happen.
It's just pretty awesome to see that the big cat still got it.
He does.
All right, we'll move out of California after our little California swing, and we'll head on over to the Sunshine State for the Honda Classic this
Awesome.
week over at PGA National in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. So we're back on the East Coast now for a few events here. Seb Straka won this event last year. As we get in closer to it, let's get right into our picks. We won't do too much about the golf course. Let's get into our picks, though. Sungjae Im's the favorite at plus 850. Shane Lowry at 1,400. So not a ton of huge names in this tournament.
Almost no names.
Yeah, Sungjae Im, he plays in a lot of events, too. So you don't have a lot of those household names. You won't have a star-studded leaderboard like we did these last few weeks. But still fun golf, to say the least, as we start in Florida. Who do you have to win this week, Josh?
You know what? I'm taking, and this feels so much like an underdog pick, Matt Kuchar.
Matty Skechers, huh?
I think he is going to win one for Skechers. Yeah, I you know, like it's in a field like this, and this goes back to what we're doing with these events, what the tour wants to do with these events. You know, like they're really, especially after the last couple weeks, seeing Rahm and Homa and the names that are at the top of the leaderboard, this weekend is going to feel a lot different. So I don't, you know, like I hope a guy like Matt Kuchar can be in contention because I think it'll kind of be a bit of an attraction for golf fans to see. Like obviously he's not going to compete in those weeks when Jon Rahm's dominating.
That's a known name too, Matt
But
Kuchar.
yeah, Matt Kuchar is a name that people recognize, and there are a few of them scattered in. Your pick is one of those, right?
Yep, Billy Horschel, 25-1. I was going to say that I would love to see a young guy win this week. I just think that would be cool, you know, for his career and stuff. But then I went and picked Billy Horschel, so I figured that one out. I just think Billy Ho knows what he's doing around these kind of golf courses. I do have a long shot that's a younger guy in Ben Griffin, 5,500 to 1. He's been playing okay. His name's been popping up on the leaderboards here and there. But my main reason for picking him this week, he had a great TikTok that he posted yesterday, a day in the life at the Honda Classic on a Monday. Yeah. And I just thought that was kind of fun. So I really would love to root for Ben Griffin and would love to see his name up on the leaderboard this weekend. So that's my long shot pick.
My long shot pick is Seb Straka again.
Defending champ.
You are the defending champ.
It's far.
And plus 3,500. No respect for the guy. So Seb Straka, throw $10 on it, see what happens.
I like it. All right, let's get into our DFS lineups. Before we look at this week, we got to say, producer Paul Russo won again.
He is on a
Don't let me get hot.
Oh man, can you tell us your secret or what?
I think I kind of alluded to it before a little bit, maybe, where it's just I kind of go higher purse and then kind of find value elsewhere. I just try and find whatever I guess the fantasy average points a person has. Is it worth say if they're at 8,500, is it worth that if they're only averaging, say, 65 fantasy points or something like that? Probably not. You can probably find better value somewhere else. So
Wow.
that's what I kind of do across the board. I mean, I know obviously.
Whole philosophy over there.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
It's all about differentiation for me and ownership numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
That's
yeah,
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to kind of weigh in, but that's kind of my main thought process behind it.
Got to find
Right.
some diamonds in the rough, per se.
Yeah. I mean, I like my
Get it
lineup.
rough.
I like my lineup.
Yeah, let's talk about 221 Honda Classic this week. I'll start with mine. We'll go left to right here. Headlined by Ben Griffin, right? The guy we already talked about.
You are all in on
A
him.
couple more guys we already talked about. Billy Horschel, my pick this week. And then your pick, Matt Kuchar. Finishing up that, Doc Redman, Aaron Wise, and Brandon Wu.
I think if you're creating a DFS lineup this weekend, you absolutely have to put Kuchar in your lineup. I don't think you can have a successful team without him in there because he's
I
just
win the
so
league
consistent.
for most guys without a picture.
That's easy to do on a week like this. So I've got Ben on, Hayden Buckley,
Love
Matt
Ben on.
Kuchar, Denny McCarthy, Robbie Shelton, Sepp Straka. Again, I'm just all in on Straka.
Ben On has a fantastic Twitter presence.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God.
And finishing up with producer Paul over there, Sanjay Im, Shane Lowry, Harris English, Podrick Harrington, Zach Johnson, and Ben Gay.
A little top heavy there, Paul.
Yeah, this one's tough. This is where you kind of see my novice knowledge within the current state of professional golf kind of come in here. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I got what I'll call a one-hole lead currently on you guys. So good luck, have fun.
As I saw from the simulator, that can be erased
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
All right, let's get into the Champions Tour, though. We got a little Bernhard
man.
Langer to talk about.
This is grinding my gears, man.
So he's
Grinding
getting
my
ridiculed
gears.
for anchoring. We see the picture up there now. But first, I want to preface it with Bernhard Langer. He's basically unbeatable. First of all,
Literally.
he's now won 45 times on the Champions Tour. That ties Hale Irwin for the most wins on the Champions Tour. He's challenging to beat, not only on the Champions Tour, he was good on the PGA Tour. I remember just a few years ago. Remember when Bryson made those comments about Augusta being a par 67?
Yeah.
Bernhard Langer beat him that week.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Bernhard Langer was hitting hybrids into all the greens. But going back to that, the anchoring issue, it sounds like you're real fired up about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
It's gray area. Make a freaking decision.
There's
Come
huge
on.
gray area
Come
there.
on. USGA, whoever wants to
Yeah,
come
look
to
where
the table.
Look where that anchor's putted. I mean, that's something that they outlawed. You can't anchor it really against your body, but that's gray area.
Clearly, you can't police it.
Right.
Because you're gonna have to watch them you're gonna have to watch these guys every
Wait,
single time.
I don't mean to interrupt. They outlawed this?
Yeah, anchoring. You can't anchor,
can't anchor
so
to
you
your
can't,
body.
like attach it to your upper body.
Like
you can't
Will
attach
Zalatoris-
like your arm to your upper body.
Gotcha.
You can anchor to your arm like Will Zalatoris anchors his putter on the inside of his arm. You can do that. But
And if
there's for sure gray area.
And if you putt like Will Zalatoris, it just doesn't matter. Guy's not gaining anything from anchoring anywhere.
Oh man.
But anyway, like
Played well
it
last
just
week.
goes back to the point of all of these governing bodies that golf has need to come together and make one decision on anchoring long putters. I mean, if this is the result of having a no anchor rule, then I think we need to outlaw the long putters completely.
Okay. Responsive question then. Sunday morning skins match at Silver Creek Golf Club. You have a guy putting like that. What do you say to him?
I say absolutely nothing.
Okay.
I say
So
absolutely
you're part
nothing
of the
because I
problem
could
then.
just go beat him. It doesn't matter. But like, it's the
Well, now a
point
handicap.
to me. Like, it doesn't bother me. The anchoring part doesn't bother me. Like that picture that's up there on the screen, like that doesn't bother me. I don't think there's that much of an advantage to putting that way. It's just that's the way he's most comfortable putting. And that goes with all of the guys that anchored at one time.
I think
Adam
there's
Scott was an
absolutely an
anchorer. I don't think I don't believe that on those greens that there is that much of an advantage against the best of the best. I don't see it. I really don't.
Right. I think just being able to be more steady over the golf ball and in that makes you more confident.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
it's as much as it fires me up, the only thing that fires me up is that all of the powers to be have allowed there to be just gray area.
Right.
Make a freaking
Very,
decision.
very frustrating, for
Just
sure.
make a decision. It's not that hard.
All right, we got to do our daily dose, or weekly dose, excuse me, of the LIV Tour.
Ugh.
They're finally going to play golf this week. They're in Mayakoba, Mexico. They've been releasing the teams this past week. Finally got them all released. Some little bit of movement from last year, but we won't spend too much time on that. What I think is the most interesting, and more interesting than the golf in my mind, is just how this is going to work on the CW app. They announced their plans. Any events in North American time zone, so like Mexico this week, they're going to air live on the CW app on Saturday and Sunday on the 1 o'clock window.
Mm-hmm.
Friday rounds will all be available on the CW app. And overseas events, will be live on the CW app in the middle of the night. And they're going to put the rounds on tape delay in the 1 p.m. window on Saturday and Sunday.
LIV is so much of a joke that they can't even get whatever they want on the CW. They're only showing it on the app. They're not showing it on TV on Friday's round. Yeah, they're not showing. If I'm LIV, I'm heated because you're working with the CW. The CW is saying, like, no, reruns of Gilmore Girls Friday afternoon is better television than this. What? That's insane. I literally just don't care about LIV anymore. I hate to say it. As a steward of golf, I feel kind of bad saying that, but I literally just don't care. I had to unfollow all of the LIV golfers that I followed before on Instagram because over the last week and a half, these stupid promotional videos unveiling the teams were just appearing one after another after another.
And they would all post them
at the exact same time.
And all the league accounts would post them.
It was just nonstop. There was one
Keeps on Bubba Watson laugh about
where
range coach.
I couldn't get away from it, and I was just like, I need to undo all of this.
All right, we didn't go over this before the podcast. Do you have a pick?
No, I don't, because I don't care. Whoever wins on the CWL, golf clap for them and
I'm
move on
taking
with
PJ
my life.
week, every single week. Dustin Johnson. He's the best golfer on that tour in my mind.
Not Cam Smith?
No, Dustin Johnson is.
Huh? Good for them.
Also, we'll talk a little bit about Full Swing, but I just love Dustin because he's the only person on the LIV Tour that said, I went to the LIV Tour for money. You know, I don't want to play as much golf. I took for money. He's the only one that's admitted it, and I think that's really cool. He's just been, every other guy has danced around all the problems that LIV. Then Dustin Johnson has been able to sit there and look into the camera and say, this is why I did it.
Speaking of LIV things,
I appreciate that. I'm okay with that. Being able to be straightforward and tell me why you did it.
Speaking of LIV things that we didn't put on the script that I think are, if nothing else, a little interesting. Brooks Koepka allegedly starting to get a little antsy about being in LIV and maybe wanting out. That is going to be something to watch so closely because the tour has just been on fire.
Right.
Like the PGA Tour has just sucked the life out of, and my guess is this weekend is going to come and go. And the golf world isn't really going to care that much.
Right. Alan Shipnuck reported that Brooks is having some buyer's remorse.
So it's going to be super interesting to see where that goes.
It kind of makes sense to me, though, if you think about Brooks's trajectory and why he went to LIV, last year. He was a broken man in terms of his body, both his knees, coming off knee surgeries. And so you flash this money in front of him, and, you're not sure if you can play that kind of, Brooks his run of majors was incredible. There's not a lot of guys that can win that many majors in that short amount of time. And, now that he's starting, it seems like he's more healthy now, and that's probably what comes out in the buyer's remorse. I selfishly would kind of like to see him back on the PGA Tour. I'd be okay with welcoming some sort of agreement to get him back there if he is serious about it, because I think it would make the product on the PGA Tour even better to have another guy that can.
I think the tour would welcome a guy like the tour is going to welcome the first guy back with open arms because that's going to deal the biggest blow ever to LIV.
Imagine the PR nightmare.
That is going to crush. That will literally crush LIV.
Yes.
Yeah, there's just no avoiding.
Yeah, now that you say it and I think about it more, they'll certainly allow a guy back if they want to come back.
Yeah. But there are some guys honestly though, there are some guys where I bet the PGA Tour would just be like, not really that worried about you. P. Reed, not really that worried about you.
Right.
Stay over there and live.
Brooks, I think, is a guy that falls into that category that they wouldn't care. Like you said, with like P. Reed. But
with very few exceptions, I think
there's only a few of those guys.
The tour would welcome that first player back with open arms,
right?
Because they're going to be the one that kind of like breaks the dam.
Yeah,
and
imagine the PR nightmare for.
Oh my
LIV.
God, it would be a disaster. They'd need a whole full swing series on how to get that back. You have gotten a little bit further through.
Yep, I have one episode left.
So what are your thoughts at this point, moving through it?
It's really awesome. It's produced really well. They did a really nice job with it last year.
Yeah.
I really, really like it. I'm really looking forward to watching the last episodes with Rory McIlroy. So my only real thoughts against it, I guess, whereas Ian Poulter got his whole episode, got himself pretty much an entire episode. I want to know who he paid for that because it's just a lot of Ian Poulter.
I saw some of that on golf Twitter.
Yeah, and they tell you every episode what a cut is, which is kind of funny to me. But being able to tell people that don't watch golf what we do every week on the PGA Tour is meaningful to me. But it is just kind of funny. But yeah, the production value is just unbelievable. I mean, what they did last year behind the scenes, following all of these guys, every single week they have footage, not only from the golf course, they have footage in the car on their way to the event. Yeah. They have footage at their house with their family. It's just really cool. I think if you can get a chance, Josh, you got to sit down and watch it. It's 8 episodes, 45 minutes each, 45 to 50-ish. It's just something that you don't really see at all with PGA Tour coverage. It's so much behind the scenes work with the players and their families and their teams. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely on the list. Simulator golf. You did a little simulator golf this past weekend, like we talked about.
Yep.
Biggest takeaway from simulator golf in the middle of winter.
It was nice to just get out there and swing.
Yeah.
We went to, like we said, Caleb's Score Zone Golf Academy in Victor, New York. We had a great time. Paul and I decided to go up. We were hoping you can make it to next time for sure. And it was just fun. You're able to play a course like Pebble Beach, which is fun. How many opportunities do you get to play, as a normal person, get to play Pebble Beach? I certainly haven't. Being here on the East Coast, hopefully I'll get out there one day. But good remarks from me. How about you, Paul?
Pebble Beach is hard, man.
It is a challenging golf course. When we first got there, our good buddy there that was working, Max, we recommended, we asked if we could play Pebble because I saw him scrolling through, and he looks at us and he goes, "It's challenging." And I was like, "Ooh, let's do it."
I mean, do you want to play a pitch and putt course? I mean,
Then we played it at like 6,100 yards, which isn't a pitch and putt.
It's a little pitch and putt to tour standards.
To tour standards for sure, but I am not near tour standards.
Playing to Central New York standards, that's fine. That's a normal golf course, 6,000, 6,500.
We had a good time. We only booked an hour, and Max let us stay a little late, so we were able to get our round in. Yeah. So what I recommend for anybody playing that simulator golf, book an hour per person.
Yep.
Seems to be the norm. If you're 2 people, you could probably play in an hour, but there's no time for talking.
You're not gonna have fun.
You're not. Yeah, and it depends on the person,
racing.
right?
Yeah.
You're going to be racing to get done. You're not able to kind of, whether it be go through your pre-shot routine or talk to a friend before you hit that shot. But overall, fun. At Caleb Score Zone in Victor.
Love it.
All right, that's all the time we have today. So we'll be back next Tuesday, for another episode of the pod here on FingerLakes1.com. Be sure to head over to TikTok, follow us there, Out of Bounds Golf Pod, and Twitter as well. And remember, whether it's down the middle or out of bounds, keep on swinging.
You've been listening to Out of Bounds. If it's coverage, debate, or discussion of pro and local golf, we'll be talking about it. Be sure to visit the website at FingerLakes1.com. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Out of Bounds FL1. See you next time on Out of Bounds.